What is up, everybody? Let's see, got this running? Yeah, I need to pull up I'm on my laptop down in the basement again, and I need to pull up the YouTube website because I can't read that chat on this screen with that white background, which I didn't think about because I don't think we've done the pink overlay since I've been down here. So, yeah. Hey, what's up, Rick? Broadford, JMZ, JB5, Large Marge, Patrick. Yeah, it's just... What's up, Roger? Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll pull the chat up on my phone so that I could still control this. That's what I used to do down here, and I totally kind of forgot about that. Anyways, how's everyone doing tonight?
Fred Smith here told us the B&H
I've got to watch an ad on my own channel. It's annoying. Who puts ads on these things? There we go. That works much better. What's up, Dylan? I look bloodless? I don't know what that means. Oh, white? I think the white balance, these are all like those LED fluorescent lights. And I think the white balance on this camera might be set from my last photo shoot. Well, not photo, I would have done it for video, but whatever I shot video of last. So if it does look a little bluish, you know, that if that's what you meant by that, that's probably why. Let's see if I could see myself somewhere on here. Yeah, there we go. I actually picked up a a stone. They had Enjoy Buys across the street at the drive-thru, so these are Enjoy Buy 420. I remember when these used to be pretty rare and they were kind of a big deal to score because they would only send them out. They had some kind of voting system, and then they would send them out to locations that like voted the most. I can't remember exactly what the deal was. I'm sure they're a little more common now, but the goal was they put a date on them and they were super fresh, and you were supposed to drink them before that date. This is a Blazy Hazy. I don't think they were hazy back in the day. They would have been more like a West Coast style. But what's up, Jay Dandy? The other thing I was wondering is having this in the bottles. There's like the sediment, and when I would drink like a spring barrel, like a wheat or a wit, I would usually do one of these to stir up the sediment to get it in the beer. And this is a hazy, so I think that's also a good idea. But you know, when you drink certain farmhouse ales, they say not to do that. As long as I'm okay. Yeah. Or I even wonder if it is on auto white balance, if the like the red of the neon could be thrown off the camera's white balance. It's been interesting with the R5, is I found that it's different than my older cameras, the way the auto white balance works, and I actually find myself messing with it more for video than I ever did with the 5D4, which seemed to do a pretty good job of natural looks. So, and that's always been one of Canon's strong suits, and again, just having not done that much work with this camera because of the situation in the world since I got it, I haven't like tweaked all the stuff that I normally would have by now by doing way more professional work with it. But what's up, William? How you doing? I need to prop this up somehow. There we go. Oh yeah, where is Pudgy? Must be over. Well, that would be Rick. That would be in the Pathless Pedal Discord, not Pudgy, right? Oh, that's good. That's tasty. Yeah, so the thing I was going to do tonight is I had, at the most basic level, I've got my, well, first off, I got my 1982 Trek 500 here, which I ride a lot in the summer and in the spring and in the fall, whenever the weather's decent. It's also the bike I use for doing like road tours. And I have a whole video about this bike and the build of it, but I have a playlist with all the bikes that I've done so far, and that's something I want to get back into now that the weather's nice, finish off the bikes that I own so far in that series. But yeah, so this bike is basically a neo-retro build. I took all the components that were on the bike I have over here on the trainer, my Trek 1500 from 2007, and put them on this bike. But the only thing I didn't change were the calipers, not knowing what the reach would be and the different. I didn't know if the adjustments would work. This bike used to be the old standard wheel size of 27 and a quarter, and off the 1500 came some Bontrager 700Cs. Excuse me. So yeah, I had to actually file out on the rear where the brake pads go in to get the pads to drop low enough to hit the brake track. The front ones were fine, but so I just ended up using those, and I never switched them. The problem is with this bike, the stopping power stinks on the old single pivot brakes, and they're old Dia-Compe or Dia-Compe, however you pronounce it. I think I've asked that like 5 times on this show before, but so they just don't really stop well. And the problem is when we do go on like tours, I have this bike fully loaded, and you come down a descent, and you need extra braking power, not no braking power. So I have a couple brakes, and I'm going to see if any of them work. Well, I have a lot of brakes, but most of them are just old, other vintage brakes on the shelf there. But I have a couple more modern ones. I'm going to see if I have anything that will actually reach the brake track that I could switch out and would be compatible with this bike. So the other thing, white balance is good on the beer. That's all that matters, right? Got my Missing Falls, as I say, channel sponsor glass. But yeah, so I've already used like some individuals from the sets of brakes I have of the modern ones on some other builds, so I'm not sure if I have anything left that'll go on this bike to improve the braking or not, but I figured I'll just give it a try. The other simple thing I want to do is I'll slide the camera over in a minute. But this has this nice leather bar tape. I think the brand is Cardiff or Cardiff. It's not the Brooks stuff, but it's essentially the same, and I love it. But it's slipped down around the where I rest my hands on the tops, right where they start to curve. It's slipped down a little bit, and Yonda was telling me that I should be able to rewrap it. So I'm going to give that a go as well. So if the brake thing doesn't work out, I at least wanted to do a couple little things before I start putting the heavy miles on this bike again for spring and summer, because I really love riding it. It's just really versatile. So yeah, you see tools. Yeah, tools are always. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, as we know. But so some of the brakes I have sitting here are, I have this, so a dual pivot, which would be nice if it would work, but I'm not sure if I'll get the sizing to work. One of the things that had changed is, let's see if I can get that, the way these end nuts are on modern brakes, they go into the frame, whereas on vintage ones, there's just nuts on each end. And I'm going to say nuts and holes a lot tonight, so I prepared myself for the behavior of this group. But yeah, so that's something that always complicates things. And another break here is too this 105 I have, and I have the rest of this groups that I've been given at different parts from Otosan is spread across my collection of brakes. So these are the two. These are two dual pivot brakes that would be a big upgrade. I think they're about the same era. So the Ultegra is a BR 6500, and the 105 is BR 5500. So yeah, the same era group set. And I do have these 105s from Otis, but these are pretty old. I don't even know if they would be an upgrade because these are still single pivot brakes. So I'm sure there's been some improvement in these because 105's name, well, I don't think, is Pudgy here yet? He would know, but what year they started using the 105 name, but you would still have to think it might be a slight upgrade, but I'm not sure it'd be worth the trouble. The only thing is they look a tiny bit more modern, but they even still have that, a little bit of that vintagey look. So I think these ones are probably not worth it. They'll probably go on some other build at some point though. They're nice to have. And then the other brake I have is this, which right before we came on, I was trying to read the model name and I accidentally scrunched up like this. So I need to figure out what I got caught where that it won't open back up, but is Tektro. And I'm wondering, are Tektros just like basically a cheap like component manufacturer that are kind of Shimano knockoffs? That's kind of the vibe I get. So I was looking at my Barry Hoban. If you guys have been around here a while, it's the bike I built up over like 4 streams. It's a Neo Retro build, very similar to this, except it's a full Reynolds 531 frame. This is a 501, but a British bike, but similar. Just this bike has more clearance, which is nice because I think that one was always a 700C, where this one I was able to gain that clearance by dropping down the wheel size a little bit. But that has the partners I noticed for these two brakes on it. I looked at before we came on. So I think I might have already used my best options for Neo Retro build, but I still wanted to just see if it was possible with what I have. You know, I could always obviously buy something else, which with how much I ride this bike and the fact that I do ride it loaded would still probably be worth it. But yeah, that's what's going on. Does Rick still hate bikes? Yeah, we had a good conversation on some bike maintenance on the Discord if you're over there. I do want to figure out what I did. I think there's like a little stop here. It'd be hard to see, especially with the quality from the base. Oh, right here that I think actually accidentally went to the other side when I opened this up trying to read that model number. But I think I did see your finished build, right, Rick, right before I went on. But Rick's having some wheel issues and broken spoke issues. If anyone's here who's not in the Discord, if anyone wants to drop the link to that, if the robot hasn't already, you could jump over there and see what I mean by a lot of the other conversation we have going on. Yeah, today was terrible for riding. It just like off and on rain, not very warm, especially after we've already had temperatures in the upper 70s and 80s. I even thought of riding the trainer, but I just had tons of work to do, and I'm like, if I get caught up on work, then the weekend will be a little bit better. So, I do not know what I did to this thing. It's hung up somewhere. Always a good start. sip of beer for patience, and then I'll. So I assume since when everything's going wrong, you guys tell me that you usually let me know when everything is going wrong that streaming from down here is working again. It's just this laptop has become like painfully slow. Like when I was trying to like, I have the Discord open for drink photos and bike photos, and it's just such a pain, and I can't. This laptop is a little old, but it's like an ultra, laptop, so everything's flash memory and stuff like that. And I never ended up using it. I bought it like fairly powerful for what it is, thinking that it would be a backup editing machine, and I never put a lot of hard use on it or even hard travel miles. So I don't know. I'm kind of bummed that it's just not working very well. I was almost wondering about it's a Lenovo not Yoga 900, like trying to talk to their service and see what would happen to get a refurbish on it. Like I said, I can't play internet video. It just won't. There's something wrong with the. It's not a full onboard. It's a graphic. It's an Intel graphic, so it's not a full separate graphics card. But also, it won't push out to a different monitor because I actually bought a little TV so I could set it up on the bar here and have that for Zwift. But it doesn't work, and it should. This computer should have plenty of power for that, but. Yeah, so I don't know if it's worth. It'd be interesting to see what it costs to get it like refurbished, or if it's just too expensive, and at that point I might as well start saving for a new one. But what's up, Micah? Yeah, it's a lot more fun with someone else here. We had a blast on Tuesday. If I say that too loud, Brad will knock at the door any minute, right? Time for Linux. Is it? Man, I've had a day dealing with tech support all day. So NVIDIA finally released a driver update that mostly fixed my problems on my desktop, but then now Photoshop proper won't recognize the graphics card. So
Micah Kraus became a member.
Thanks, Micah. Well, I guess I'll mess with this later, but yeah, I appreciate you joining the channel. That puts us at 20 members. That's kind of a cool number. Nice round number. There it is. Got it. Yeah. That little screw just had to jump past to stop. But funny Brad, funny Brad, funny Brad. Everything looks good and sounds great. Nice. Yeah. So that was one problem that I mostly got fixed because this driver update really did fix camera raw and bridge, which were my number one nightmares. So those are actually using acceleration, which, well, if you guys are Lightroom guys, same thing with using bridge and camera raw. It's a nightmare to use without acceleration, whereas Photoshop proper, it's not as much of a pain. It's just a little, you get used to that nice smooth scrolling around, but it's doable. I actually just relocked this break while we were talking. But to beat him in. Hey, what's up, Blanky? I should show what everyone's drinking. Let's see if I could get this laptop to do that. But what was the other tech problem? Oh yeah, my lens that came with the Canon R5. I'm shooting on the R5 tonight because I just want to use the better autofocus when I'm down here than the 5Ds. But the lens it came with, it doesn't, like, it'll just quit like working. It'll say aperture f00. Sent it to Canon. They sent it back and said it had no problems. And I was like, oh, it has problems. So finally, I called them up again, took photos of all the problems it has. So that lens is going back. Hopefully that gets fixed. So hopefully I'm starting to solve some of my tech problems. This laptop will be the next thing after that. So again, thanks, Micah. Okay, yeah. Now we can do this. So, okay, that's working. This is Broadford's, yeah, let's go through these. Broadford's drinking a hazy from Wicked Weed. I like it in the bike. The good thing with those is I might have just set it that way for the photo, but what I do is if you put your beer in one of the thicker, actually cheaper style koozies, they will fit in the bottle cages really well a lot of times. What does Large Marge get? This is a Perennial Artisan Ales Shake the Frost Session Coffee Stout. I don't think I've heard session used with stout yet. Because stouts, a classic stout would be low alcohol anyways, and that's usually what session means. Geez, say it, don't spray it, Tim. But Patty Redbeard has a, can't read that down here, but I think it's Dragon IPA. Dragoon, perhaps, and a dog in his lap. I'm laughing at that. Michael, you got people. Let's see. Come on, open up. Fat Rips, Double IPA, Community Beer Works. Oh, that's a new one to me. I'm not familiar with them. Oh, Jay Dandy's got another, looks like another crowler from North Water there in Kent. Hike and Bike. Blonde. Oh, Blondale. Okay, nice. I've had that there, yeah. That's a spot I think I'm going to end up having beers at a fair amount. Just because they're right there on the trail out in Kent. Roger's got a Taft's, which I love that brewery. The actual brewery space in the old church is beautiful. I think I've talked about this before. Berry Vibe Sour Ale. And JMZ has a Groovy Juice. Oh yeah, Fathead's beer. Oh, I thought it's just this cool lighting. I thought in the head, I thought he actually had an orange peel floating in there for a second. I forget how much harder it is to follow everything down here. Trying to do two screens with the phone is not quite as fun as two huge monitors. Better in than off. Awesome looking dog, William said. No, Dragoon. Yeah, you have to try the hike and bike, right? You're out riding. So yeah, I think one thing I was wondering if anyone knows, and again, amazingly, I hope Pudgy's okay because he hasn't missed an episode in a long, long time. But I noticed today, just grabbing the brakes and then looking at my other bikes and seeing what was on all of them, and a lot of the real vintage ones have the center pull style where the cable pull goes right down the center, obviously center pull. But all the vintage brakes. The cable pulls from a different side than the modern brakes, which I was wondering if there's a reason for that. So I have no idea, but here, I'll put it on here. But yeah, so these old, brakes, the cable goes to this side. Still a little behind the chat, huh? And the modern ones, they're all on this side. And every single one across the board, it's not like so I don't think it's like a country thing, country of origin thing or whatever. It just seems to be a fact of vintage brakes are on a different side. But let's see, these were nine? No. Oh, Micah's better in than off joke just hit me. God. Oh, shit. I was thinking I'd see if anything works on the front first, which I'm doubtful about, that anything will have a long enough like actual bolt to get through everything. But I was going to see if maybe by one odd chance the nut does fit through there, because it does on my vintage Schwinn. So granted, that bike's more of a 1986, so maybe they had changed already, but figured it's worth a try since the stopping power is in the front, right? But even if I could get the back one to have a more modern brake, it would still be an improvement. Yeah, yeah. Bring this. That is a party paste sticker. Yeah. I figured this was a good bike for it. Touring bike with the party paste sticker. Yeah, you'd think English versus non-English on the brake threading, or the side it pulls from, but yeah, because this vintage truck, obviously this is still an American-made truck, and then what would my British bike, my two British bikes, well, I didn't have any brakes on the Barry Hoban, it was just a frame. But the Viscount, which is British, is center pull, so that doesn't, I guess, clear anything up. But yeah, the Schwinn was already a Neo retro build when I got it, because that's Dura-Ace. Can't pay attention to which way I'm turning this now. Oh yeah, that leather bar tape, I love it matching the saddle. I don't know if you were here yet, Lanky, but that was one thing I was saying. I'm going to try and rewrap that tonight because it's slid down the bars. It has really cool bar ends too. These, I don't know if this will show up from here, but kind of like that wood with the leather inlay. The full price of that bar tape was expensive. I might have picked it up when Otis was moving the shop location, so I maybe didn't pay as much as he was trying to clear out stuff, but side pull is a political thing. Oh, Rick said he used leather grips when riding. Dylan was asking about, and again, I don't want to butcher that phrase, but Luoika, I've heard it pronounced, and now I can't remember, but I keep going back and forth on this. It's interesting, so there are rides that are very strict about you dressing in vintage kit, and the bikes have to be, I can't remember, I know it has to be rim brakes, but you can use like modern bikes as long as they're rebuilds of vintage ones, because doesn't like Bianchi and they make like bikes specifically for it. I think it'd be cool to photograph. I don't really care about like, to me it's almost like Civil War reenactments, you know. Be cool to go and watch, but I don't need to be a Civil War reenactor. Same with the riding, like, I don't know. Because I like my I still love my, you know, old Peugeot and my bikes that are still like my Viscount's all pretty much original except for the rear derailleur, but yeah, I guess I'm not that much of a purist. Like this bike has become one of my favorites because the fact that it's a cool looking vintage steel frame. I think it's absolutely beautiful, this bike. Yeah, even though I went by a new Trek because I think they're not a great company but anymore. But yeah, but it's awesome to have like modern shifting. No, I'm not going to have anything with that. Let me zoom in for a second. I do love like the wool. I love the aesthetic of that. I'm not saying I would never buy any of like those cool vintage wool jerseys, but is that, where's my, yeah, so you could see how long I don't have, oh, I dropped the nut, but I don't have anything that long in any of my modern brakes, and these are even cheaper vintage brakes. So yeah, I think my only hope will be from the rear, unless that nut actually fits into there. Which I dropped one here. Oh, it actually does a little ways. Let's see if it reaches. Broadford, I'll have to check out that link to the experiences. Hey, what's up, Robin? Yeah, I think the routes and everything look cool. The idea is kind of cool. It's just a little bit too purist, I think. I mean, I think they actually check like your clothes, right? This actually fits in here. I just need to find, I wonder if I have a longer one anywhere in the tool. Like I said, I already prepared myself for all these jokes. Forget that. Nah, that's not gonna work. That Patrick's got it kind of right, like good. Like I said, if I'm pronouncing that right, almost borders on reenactment. Which, yeah, I love the vintage bikes. I love the vintage clothes. I don't just know if I'm sure I have some bikes I could show up in and some clothes I could probably show up in and pull off, but to ride those routes. Some of those routes are really cool, and they're actually like gravel to like replicate the old. A lot of them I think are gravel to replicate the old roads that would have been around then. A lot like Strada Bianchi and stuff like that, which would be really fun routes. I would definitely rather have a bike that could at least fit, 32s at the minimum to ride that and enjoy it. But trying to catch him. What's up, obsolescence? Yeah, for vintage bikes, what to look for. I think we were talking about this a little bit on, I think maybe on the stream where I had my Barry Hoban on, but it's hard to describe, but one thing is the dropouts. Usually real dropouts will have a name stamped in them or something like that, as opposed to sheet metal dropouts, which indicates the bike's really cheap and they're not very strong. Those make a big difference. This isn't across the board, but if it's friction shifting and the shifters are at the top, usually a cheaper bike than if the shifters, where this one would have had them originally, would be right here. I did have them. I have the whole group set off this. So down tube shifting is usually, that's not across the board either, but a sign of a slightly better bike than top tube shifting. Definitely the dropouts. I mean, if they have a name in them, stamped in them, that'll be an indication. These Trek ones actually don't, but they have the adjustment screws here. There's little screws in the back. They would never put those, these are forged. They wouldn't put those into, I don't think I've seen adjustment screws in sheet metal dropouts. Again, none of this is across the board because there's tons of stuff out there, but a couple signs to look for. I mean, all these can be replicated, but you know, if you've got a Reynolds sticker or a Columbus sticker, it's going to mean the bike's a little nicer. Like I said, this is 501. It's, I think from the time, kind of second tier Reynolds. 531 would be the really good stuff. Columbus, anything by Columbus is going to be decent, but SLX would be like top of the line for vintage. Those little things would, some things to look for. If your chain rings have a big guard sticking off them, it's probably a cheap bike, really cheap. It's something to look for. But I keep thinking of making a video on that, and I'm trying to just decide where, what, because there's so many variables. But get this, how do I get the camera so sideways? I put this brake back on since I'm, the fact that this kind of nut does fit in there though means that I just need a more modern, not a more modern, they do make some of these longer, and I just need the right brake, and I can upgrade that pretty easily, which is good. Just not with the stuff I have sitting around here right now. But where did I put those ones I dropped? I'm always a big fan of trying to use what's on the shelf first, but oh, I dropped my other curved one, didn't I? Yeah. I left the chat over there again. Shoot. Yeah, old mountain bikes for Rick's Fit. I don't know, yeah. Oh yeah, Dylan. He said if making YouTube videos is like investing, making a vintage bike buyer's guide is a buy low, sell high power move right now. Yeah, I definitely need to do that. It's something that's been on my mind for a long time. It's one that I actually am kind of worried that would do okay, and then just like how Russ on Pathless Pedaled is always annoyed by all the kind of comments, I figured that's like the kind of thing that would really. There's so many people who are going to argue with every little nerdy thing about like what I say on that video when it's would be designed to be like a general what to look for. The stuff that I've learned from doing this for years, like what to look for, you know, I don't know. I mean, most vintage bikes you buy, the second you put new tires, housings, and cables on them, you've already lost your money. Like, but that doesn't matter. Like my Peugeot, same thing. I have more money into it than it's worth, but I've ridden it 4,500 miles. So it's entirely worth the money I put into it personally, though it has no, the tires on it are more valuable than the bike, you know. So it's just that, I guess that would be like the kind of thing to build into that perspective when you're doing the video to explain to people, like, if you're going to ride this personally, there's, you know, no limit to what you can do to a bike. But if your goal is to then flip it and sell it, it's not a good idea. So, on many bikes, you know. you know, like check out. There's some great companies on that I follow on Instagram, like Steel Vintage Bikes in Germany. They do almost all high end builds. So fix up Calnagos and you know the stuff they're doing, all the different French. So they're doing all the high end French and Italian stuff. You know they get their money back out of putting Campy Super Record onto Eddie Merckx, and Super Corsas and Calnago Mexicos. I don't think that'd be a much harder business to pull off in most parts of the U.S. just because those kind of bikes aren't around. The bikes that are around are the cheap French bikes, which will ride great, and stuff like that. Also, if you want to do neo retro builds, which was something I would talk about, French bikes are a nightmare because all the threading is different. So the bottom bracket, you have to do like threadless bottom brackets if you're going to put a new one on there, which isn't undoable, but you're just adding to the cost if you're buying a new Phil Wood or Velo Orange bottom bracket. But the stems are a different size, the seat posts are a different size on French bikes, so even though I always mess with them, I would never advise anyone else who's getting into this to mess with them. I just didn't know it when I got started, so I kept doing it. But the derailleur, you can't hang modern derailleurs on bikes that had simplex derailleurs without, you have to thread the hole where the derailleur goes, and you have to file in a stop so the derailleur doesn't swing all the way around. Just some of the pitfalls of dealing with French stuff. British and American bikes are way easier to turn into neo-retro builds if that's what you're trying to do. Pudgy showed up. Turn off the comments. Oh man, I'm way back. I'm way back in the chat. Gonna catch up. Ben's Large Marge got the Yonda face with the sheet metal dropouts. I think on St. Patrick's Day when Yonda took me home, it was something I was arguing about, probably fairly in an awful manner, very slurry manner. Oh, Rick asked about my rib. Um, it's still just as bad. It's like it hasn't healed at all. I mean, it only hurts with a little with pressure on it, so it's actually worse to like sleep or anything like that. But yeah, even just like this amount of pressure hurts it. I must have really cracked it. So Lotus, Lotus frames. I've seen those. I think they only make high end bikes, don't they? I believe so, but I'm not sure about that. Oh, Lanky was saying turn off the comments, not on this, for if I post one of those. Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things where you need to also realize, like, not become one of that, like bitter because, and same thing with us. It's like 90% of comments, even on my videos that have, I wouldn't say gone viral, but gone way beyond like my normal audience, are still positive and good. It's just a couple, the same, either a troll, which trolls don't actually bother me because they're just trolls, or some people who are just like, who just want to argue. And I know that sounds like a troll, but people who know what they're talking about but want to argue. Like the first video I ever had that was popular was in the series on bikes I own, which is the Peugeot. And some guy just getting on there like over and over again, and other people have argued him, like talking how it's such a trash bike. And I'm like, the premise of this video is that it's a cheap bike that I put tons of miles on. I'm not denying. And he just going on and on about like cheap French bikes, cheap French bikes. I'm like, I bought it for $30 dang dollars. I'm not denying that it's a cheap bike. I know now exactly what it is. I didn't know what it was when I bought it, So yeah, one of those things to be like, hey, block this guy if he's going to keep going, when everyone else is being reasonable. But yeah, that's a YouTube thing in general. We're lucky we haven't, this channel hasn't achieved like any kind of, we've had a couple trolls in the live chat, but usually it's just pretty minor stuff and you just got to remind yourself it's not that big of a deal. But Oh, Pudgy said turn off the comments. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is the reason to do YouTube too is like engaging people. It's fun when something does, like people have the same interest. The comments on the Viscount video, on the other hand, are very positive, and people are like, no one's done this thorough of a video on YouTube about this kind of bike, which I think is a super interesting bike. Just for it's got so many little unique features that no one else had done yet. Again, not even that bike is not, in really good shape. Maybe someone could get $500 for it, and especially in the right color. I paid 75 for mine. There were a couple things that needed to be switched out, but you know, again, I'm not so much as a collector as someone who I want to ride them. And same with like when you see all the cameras behind me, I don't buy super expensive cameras to put them on the shelf. I buy cameras to use. So, and I like tinkering with stuff, which is obvious, right? So changing bikes around and stuff like that. Certain ones I don't want to change, but but none of these are super valuable high end bikes. Like, yes, if I got a, Calnago with, Eddie Merckx's picture on it, I'm not going to make that a neo retro build. That would probably be kept all original. But Large Marge, you're slowly gathering up the parts for a semi neo retro build. Like components has to be all you would need because you have what, like 25 Japanese vintage frames at least. So turn off Pudgy's comments. Dang, 68 hour week. So were you taking a nap, Pudgy? Patrick was saying the ribs does sound like it's a fracture. I think it is. Like I said, they don't do anything for him, so it doesn't really matter. It's real low on the rib cage, so I think it's like right where it cuts in. I think I might have fractured it right where that lower rib cage joins, but it's probably a tumor. Oh, Michael was asking if I cracked my rib from all the laughing on Tuesday. Um, Now I went over the bars coming into the Memorial Trailhead going towpath towards Akron. A bunch of the limestone was on that concrete apron, and there were two people with dogs there. I rang my bell and went around them, and I think I just hit that turn a little harder than normal, and there was a little more crushed limestone on the concrete than normal, and the bike went right out. I rolled out of it pretty well, but my elbow went into my ribs really hard. The Raleigh was fine. I'm, lost skin on the outside of my leg and my shoulder back here, but even those aren't. None of that's bad. My hip didn't hit. It really was my elbow pushing into the rib. So Roger broke 4 ribs. Wow. Large March says I'm sore from my beating. Thanks, JB5. I appreciate that comment. Oh, JMZ has a Lotus Elite with Shimano 600. Nice. I'll definitely check that out. I'll pull it up here maybe even in a minute. Apu Oppo said, Brifter and Crank use what type, sir? If you're talking about, sorry, I wasn't up on the conversation, so I don't know if you were directly with what I was saying, but this is 9-speed 105, the whole group set except for the calipers, which is what I was looking into changing tonight, but it's not going to work on the front. So, yeah, and even the bottom bracket, it went right in with this. This is 3-speed, 3x9 Shimano 105. No problems there. So, yeah, even though this is a 1982, all the stuff from 1987 or from 2007 went directly onto it. So, all the same standards. I guess, obviously headset's original to this bike is quill stem instead of threadless, or instead of threaded, but. Pudgy passed out. Yeah, Micah said happens fast. It was one of those where, of course, there were a bunch of people around, and I rang the bell, and these people with their dogs were just standing there, and I was kind of annoyed, so I didn't slow down, really cocky into the turn, way too fast. But 9 out of 10 times I would have been fine. Whatever. It's funny with the used market. So with the pandemic and the bike market kind of going back up after it had used market was way down for a long time since the last recession. People are throwing bikes up there that are trash and like putting $400 on them, you know, even here in Cleveland and Akron, because the market isn't that hot for used bikes around here. I don't think. Maybe Large Marge and Otis and Yonda think a little different, but when I look at Craigslist, I could still find, you know, middle of the road bikes for reasonable price. But you always get those people who think stuff's worth more than it is. Same with when I'm at estate sales looking at cameras. Someone has a Minolta, it works perfectly fine. They don't realize every Minolta from 1978 still works perfectly fine, and they were sold by the millions, probably tens of millions, and they just have no value. The value to me is that they would work and I would shoot film through them, but $25, no way I'd pay more than that, you know. And that's same with most vintage bikes, French.
Rick Urbanovsky super chatted $5, pork ribs for everyone.
Nice. Was that way too loud, by the way? Let me know. Thanks, Rick. Oh, Lanky, your frame's stuck in customs. Was that actually shipping from Italy, Lanky? I know it's an Italian bike, but... Hey, what's up, Peyton? Embarrassing to crash, yeah. I told this story a week ago, but... Right? Yeah, it was a week ago. No, a week ago Tuesday I crashed. But, of course, a bunch of people standing around, and since my elbow did hit my rim, one guy, the people with the dogs were fairly unconcerned, just like, oh, and that's why they were clueless people standing in a trailhead entrance anyways. I don't want to blame them. I should have slowed down, but annoying people in the way. It was a different guy who was like, oh my God, are you okay? But I had knocked all the wind out of myself, so even though I was getting myself off the ground, pushing my lever, my one lever went all the way in back into the right position and throwing my leg over. It was like, he was like, oh, at least you rolled out of it. I'm like, oh, I was like, you learn how to roll out of it when you fall down enough. Some stupid whatever came out of my mouth, and I really got on and rode away. But yeah, frustrating. Let's see how long the bolt is in the rear one and see if there's any possibility I could put a modern brake in the rear. Oh, Lanky said it is. Oh, it was the way loud? Okay, I'll turn that down a little bit. I saw it go into the yellow and red on the faders. Oh, it is shipping from Italy. Nice. You know, you never... It's rare to crash when no one's around, right? It's always when you got a good crowd. Oh, I was just remembering, I think with the Barry Hoban, what I did to get it to work was putting a modern front brake in the rear gave me the bolt length that I needed to get it done. So like I was saying, I think I used up the right combinations of brakes for my Neo Retro builds already, but, well, why is that so tight? There we go. But I figured it was worth exploring. It was something I wanted to do anyway, so I'm like, why not mess around with it on the stream? And any chance to show my truck. I really do love this bike. I've talked about this, I think, on the stream and in the video about it, but I really bought it because of the looks. It was, and I think I even paid a little more than, I should have. I think I paid $300, but the guy was local. I paid less than he had it listed for, but it's pristine. Like, it really is like, it almost looked like new old stock, even the group set. And he must have, I don't know if it just sat around or if he was a little amateur mechanic himself, but he wasn't a very good one because some stuff was loose that I had to tighten up out on my first ride. I realized because it looked so nice and everything looked like the tires were new, it looked like it had been gone over, that I just took it out, which was a good lesson to be like, don't ever do that, always check everything. But I think I had to tighten the seat clamps. I think I had to tighten the quill stem. Yeah, there were a couple things that were just loose. I think even the, this is the original, no, this wouldn't be because it had clip-on Suntour down tubes. I think those were actually slipping from side to side, so yeah. Don't trust anyone when you buy a bike from Craigslist, but I don't think he meant any harm. I think he just didn't know what he was doing. Usually when I get a good deal, it's someone's dad's bike. Like the Jeton that I paid $175 for. The guy had it listed for $350, and I offered him half, like giving him the price. Like I actually don't need to buy another bike, price, you know. But he accepted it, so I bought it. So that was his dad's, and he was saying how he was never allowed to touch it. It was always in the corner of the garage. But the French picked up the feathers on rides. The first one was the first time we did Ohio to Erie, and I just stuck it in there, and it's just hung on that long. And then I picked up a second one. They've just kind of hung on. But there was if you've ever read Devil in the White City, they talk about it. But there was a trend in like when that World's Fair was going on, but at the time to put feathers in your bikes and stuff like that. So it was kind of like it's an old school thing that I think mostly all the ladies did. Large loves the loud chats. What's up, Grand Subject? Oh, Micah was out. I didn't get to say goodbye. Peyton asked about the drone. I have the Mavic Pro 2 right now. I love it. It's such an upgrade from the original Mavic. The sensor is so much better. The quality for the photos, way better, way noticeable. Video, people don't. I notice how much better it is, but the wow factor of drones makes the video almost less important, whereas the photos, as a photographer, I hate editing crappy quality photos. So it's a really nice upgrade. Whoops. Almost closed out my chat. A loud chat is good. Gary likes great bikes, and it's a lot of you guys know Traveling Through, he's doing a video series as he rides his bike across the country. He has the modern Trek 520, which almost has the same paint job. I didn't even know about this till I saw his videos, and they redid the old vintage decals. It's kind of cool to see that they added all like the modern wider clearance and all the different brazons. This only has like the one cage. When we tour, I actually stick one of the cages that'll strap on here. So let's see if anything will fit in here. Oh wow, no, that length, I think I did use everything with the long post already. Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, these all the vintage ones, the post is just so much longer to go through there. But I wonder if we do have the option again, if this nut will slide into there. No, it'd have to be drilled out. And if you remember, I was talking about the Barry Hoban of possibly drilling it out, but I didn't have a drill that will fit in this small distance. This frame I kind of wouldn't want to drill out because it's a nice shape. I think what I need to do is acquire another front brake, modern front brake, and put it in there. So kind of a bust on upgrading the brakes tonight. I mean, I've got 45. What do I have on this bike? Somewhere around 4,000 miles on this bike, so I haven't killed myself yet, but hey, the bike I wrecked had disc brakes, so. So yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to find some dual pivot brakes. I guess I could pull a brake. They're black though. The bike on the trainer has Cane Creeks, which are the ones that actually go with this group set. And I bet I could do that. I bet I could pull the front one off that and put it on here. And I guess on the rear it wouldn't matter as much. On the front I wouldn't want a black one because it just would look so out of place. That might be my option though for the rear, to at least put a modern brake on the rear, is pull the front one off the Trek 1500 and put it on here. I think I'll probably end up doing that. Grab this again. Bicycle herpes? Is this pork by another name? Yeah, I think Gordon's a pork eater. I should have used my ratchet for this, if it fits on there. Burpees, as they call it locally. Perfect. Well, back to where I started. So. You out, Roger? See you later. Yeah, so let me see what you guys would think about. See if I can get it. Can I get it in frame? Where are we? Give me a second. Where am I? Oh, I'm over here. Hard to see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that to come up. All my extension cords are sitting on this. I probably shouldn't mess with it. Just going to try and show the concrete brakes on there, and if anyone thought it would look horrible to put them onto a bike that I think looks as good as this one does, but so I need the two camera situation. Whoops. There we go. Looks like Large Marge took care of Gordon. I'm sure Gordon will be back with a different name in a minute because he doesn't have anything better to do. But oops. Well, I guess we'll still try and do the bar tape tonight because at least get something accomplished. I mean, knowing what works and what doesn't work is getting something accomplished, but yeah. No, the Trek's original crank is a 2x. I think it's right here. Oh no. That's what I took apart. I took it apart and made it a 1x for my single speed, the original crank. But yeah, it was a 2x, like that classic, what are those, 52, they're barely even a jump, 52, 46, 52, 48. Pudgy would probably know if he's awake, but yeah, so this was a classic, would have been 2x6 on tour group set. This one someone had changed, I think, since the original. It did have more of a little granny gear, like those Shimano ones with the bigger in the back. Yeah, these are the components that. So it would have been an ARX Suntour rear derailleur. Yeah, it's stuff. The original front derailleur. And these are the original levers. And even got the original shifters. Yeah, Suntour. Yeah, so the crank I took apart, combined with parts from a crank that was on my vintage, on the vintage cross bike, and made the single speed crank out of that. But like I said, just love like tinkering and building different stuff up. So Pudgy says they were 52/48. Yeah. Large Marge found the cure for bicycle herpes. I didn't see many. I mean, there were triple cranks going way back. I mean, Campy made, I think, triple cranks for touring bikes back when the rear would have been even just like a 4 or 5 speed, probably even 4. But this bike was considered. I found the old catalogs. They place it between their true touring bikes and their race bikes. I think I'm trying to think of the phrase they used. I think they called it a sports touring bike, but it doesn't, like as Yonda said, it probably would have had cantilevered brakes if it was a true touring bike. The geometry is more racy. As you could actually see, I do have the stem extended pretty well. And I actually just dropped the seat a little bit on my last ride I was on, because to get it a little more level. Put this down before I forget when I take it back out. But yeah, so it is, even for the touring we do, it can be a little steep of geometry sometimes, and I know I'm being like stubborn just because I like it so much, where it's not actually the best bike for what I'm using it for. It is fun though. It is fast. Like got the toe peak rack on it, but just to ride it like unloaded, it's a fun quick bike to ride, especially with the upgrade, the nicer wheels and everything like that. Actually, the first time I took it out, it was before I rebuilt it. I hit a bump, wiped out, and actually bent the original wheel, and had to ride over to Dirty River and get Otis to true it for me before I could ride it even home. But yeah, it was just sitting leaning up against the wall, like with my other bikes, because I'm like, the bike's almost pristine, but I have like sentimental down tube shifting bikes. So if I'm going to ride like a vintage bike that's down tube shifting, why am I going to ride like the pristine one and just leave it around? So that's when I came up with the idea, because my 1500 I liked, I got really good times on that bike. It's fast, but it's that older aluminum that is just makes for such a harsh ride, and it only fits 28, so you can't even really mitigate the harsh ride of the aluminum with like more supple or like wider tires. So that's why the 1500 just ended up on the trainer. So. Oh, JMZ wants to know about that look. That look is a project we've worked on the stream, and it just needs to be it just really needs to be tuned up. It's campy. It's a vintage carbon. So lugged carbon, aluminum lugged carbon. But very... Yeah, the look is... So anyone who's been around a while knows it, but it's a Bernardino model, who was the Badger. notoriously rode with Greg LeMond. They made a whole documentary about them, those two riding together for La Claire and all those early teams. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So that bike, friend gave me the old Mavic wheel set, the Caesarums. Then a different friend gave me 10-speed Campy Centaur, or Centaur, however you pronounce that in Italian. Bought some bars from Dirty River for it. So yeah, that bike's kind of just to build it for fun, because I can only imagine the harshness of that vintage carbon lugged. But I picked up the frame because I couldn't believe how cheap I found it on eBay, and I just wanted a look, and I wanted to, I just love that it's an Eno. Yeah, so it's a KG76. But yeah, so that just needs a few finishing touches that I just haven't got into messing around with. So just needs buttoned up. Yeah. That bike's been like the slowest build ever. Even slower than I got the Barry Hoban since I had that frame and finished building that, and I was slow at that. Same with the single speed, the Miata. Me and Ben traded those frames like large Marge like 3 years ago. But there's really no rush on it because I just don't. I've got my Schwinn Peloton as my fast Neo Retro build, so this is just kind of something that I really think is cool, and I don't even know how hard I would end up riding it. As Yonda said, if anything ever starts to feel comfortable on that bike, something is broken. So to be careful. I even did find like an Aero seat post for it though. That's kind of cool and online, and it's a 3T stem. So yeah. Had the Mavic headset, the original Mavic headset, which is cool because it's a little different, but Rick Premature. Oh, we're at 10 o'clock too. I can play the members video for a piddle break. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Then I'll redo the bar tape on this guy. See how it works. Like Yonda said, the only issue would be like the coloration would look different, but he said you should be able to rewrap the leather, so it's worth a try. I'm not really concerned with the color looking a little different. It'll wear back in. When I first built this up, I had some bar tape I got for free that I put on it, knowing that I would change it after one season. But I was trying to look to see if I had it over here. It was not a cool look for this bike, but it was yellow, so it at least matched the yellow highlights. But yeah. Yeah, let's do members video. I was talking about this in the Discord, but so there's no more accidents of someone like doing a super chat and not getting heard when the videos are playing. Now the overlay is still supposed to pop up. I wish it would let me do them so I could. Oh, maybe it will. Maybe I just super chat myself so I could test it out, because I guess I lose 30% to YouTube or something like that. Oh, Rick asked about rallies. I actually have a rally sitting right here. Not my gravel bike, but... So Rally has been around for so long that you really have to be careful buying them. So like Modern Rally is like Modern Schwinn. The trademark has been bought and sold a bunch of times. So even though Rally again makes some decent bikes, like I really like my Tamland too, and they make other decent bikes, it's not Vintage Rally. And even this Vintage Rally is, even with the same with mine, my gravel bike, but even this one with the old cool looking head badge, this is a Huffy. It's a cheap, like they even try and make like the sticker look cool for the steel down there at the bottom below my hand. So it kind of looks like a Reynolds sticker or something like that, but it's Raleigh 502 and it says guaranteed built with. It is chromoly, so it's not garbage, but this is not like a double butted frame or anything like that. Again, these are some sheet metal dropouts on there. But yeah, so this is Huffy bought the rights for Rally for a number of years. And yeah, so what it says here is Rally Cycle Company of America. So if it's American Rally, it's not actually a Rally. It's someone who bought the logo. It's Huffy who bought the logo. Yeah, so like again, this is a frame you could build up and ride thousands of miles on it because it's steel, but it's not a super nice frame or anything. And even here, like U.S. Cycling Team official supplier, uh, what they were supplying to the U.S. Cycling Team was not this bike. I even have I have a nice Jeton Tour de France, but I have a really cheap Jeton that has still like a sticker that says like handmade and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, someone welded it by hand, but it's a boat anchor. So, yeah. But Raleigh made really nice race bikes, too. So it's just you have to see. Like Team Raleigh, in what, late 70s, early 80s, they were riding really, really nice race frames. But yeah, it all depends. It's complicated, right? You really do have to know what you're looking for. Like that's what I was saying. That's a great indicator, And they actually stamped these. So I was wrong there, even talking earlier about sheet metal nut dropouts not being stamped. These ones are stamped Raleigh. So it just proves that nothing is 100%. Raleigh was like so if you look at Peugeot is the French company that like made the biggest French company in their heyday. They made high-end racing bikes and then they made Walmart bikes. Schwinn in its heyday made really nice bikes, really cheap bikes. And the same would go with Raleigh. Raleigh was the biggest British company by far. And same thing, all the way from high end, all the way to garbage. I guess the most comparable thing would be Trek today. Trek will make a Kmart bike, but Trek will still make the bike that is being ridden, in the Tour de France by the Trek team, Trek Segafredo. So, yeah, brand doesn't matter all that much. You have the analogy in like the guitar world. Fender makes cheap Mexican Fenders. They also make high end Japanese Fenders, and they make high end American Fenders, and everything in between. So saying you have a Fender means nothing. Which Fender do you have? So hate bikes. All right, sorry. I could really ramble about this. Anything vintage, pretty much. Let's do the thanks break. It's the video you hate. We are going to take a quick break here. Let's first thank the members, though. They really do help make this channel better in every way. If you want to add your name to this list, there is a link in the chat right now and also below this video. It is really appreciated. Like I said, it will help make the channel better in every way, but you also do get some special perks. There are extra videos, more content, discount on swag, and a few other things. Check out the link if you're interested. We do appreciate any support here, though, so if you're just tuning in to watch for a little while, hit the like button. They say it helps out. But yeah, any kind of support, whether you've ever, bought a piece of swag, done a super chat, but even just watching is good enough. I appreciate it. I really have fun doing this, so I'm glad we have a little community here. Also, take this chance again to say join us in the Discord. That's become a really cool thing, too. We'll be back in about a minute, but one more time, thanks to the members. It's the same video. The names are just in a different order. Now that my graphics card is working, maybe I could go back to having the names appear one at a time and everyone could calm down. I have to add Micah's name anyways now, so I do have to redo the I have to redo the video again. So we'll try this again. We'll try it again for Tuesday. I haven't tried Marge's idea of shaking a head real quick while we watch it. Trying to make my own life easier. Where are we? Whoops, that's the wrong screen. I was going to show that Lanky popped up that he was drinking some Earl Green tea, so I was popping that up there. Blood in, blood out. It's always a rat's rule, right? Oh, you guys were talking about snow. Oh, grand subject. I missed your comment that you were saying Raleigh makes gorgeous bikes pre-77. Yeah, and even their history, if you there's a really good documentary on. I'm trying to remember if it was just on Raleigh that I watched it on, or if it was just on British bikes in general. Because even Raleigh was like, with that they kept like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then when bikes were declining, just Britain had a lot of like the same stuff as the U.S. did with freeways, and like bikes became not cool, like post World War II, where Raleigh started to like combined with all the other companies, and they even got bought before 77. Raleigh had already merged on the level that Raleigh itself wasn't even the company that owned, Raleigh anymore. But they still made, they even after till probably 82, there were still some really good Rallies, and like I said, there are again now, but it's Raleigh in name and logo only. But Broadford still likes the video because it still has a good song. It's the same video, just the names are in a different arrangement. How did I know people would? I didn't know anyone was ever going to become a member when I wrote that was a perk that I'd put up I'd do a shout out. So I think the tape will be easier to do on the ground. Also, I know not to over clamp a top tube. It was in there pretty loose because I knew I wasn't really going to be wrenching on it hard. I loaded the seat enough that the clamp wouldn't fit on the seat post. If anyone else does not know that, do not clamp really hard onto a nice steel, onto any frame, because the tubes are narrower in the center and you could actually clamp too hard. So. Rick was asking if bikes are stamped with the year. No. There's a lot of databases, usually on a lot of bikes, and again, this is not across the board. On the bottom of the bottom bracket shell, a lot of times that's where the serial number will be on vintage bikes. You could find online databases to date the bikes by that. Some companies did use date codes that are pretty easy to decipher. Some, like a lot of French bikes, are a total mess and hard to figure out. So no, usually if you get a complete bike, what I usually am gauging the year on is the components, if they seem to be original. But again, people change stuff out. Like I've changed all these out. If I were to, disappear tomorrow and someone came down here and tried to date these bikes, most of them would confuse the heck out of you. So even my truck mountain bike I ride from '03 now has, I guess the group set would be original, but the bars and the fork are different. So JMZ, you got a bike stand coming in nice. Yeah. That's what JMZ originally, I thought I needed to clamp just to clean it. I bought this one thinking I could throw it outside and get a lightweight one. Was it Rick who got one of the you could just buy those arm ones that you could bolt on. I think I want to get just like an arm one to bolt on. I have a tiny little shed built into my fire escape out back of the studio. It'd be nice to bolt one there to hang it up and just be able to clean the drivetrain and stuff outside instead of having all the stuff making a mess here in the basement. But they're a game changer. Like originally just off my workbench, which is right over here, I just had some 2x4s clamped and then, yeah, would put it on there. Ben usually just tries to date humans. That's a solid joke. But yeah, Rick, yeah, don't clamp hard onto a, never clamp hard onto a top tube. But especially like this bike is too, it's butted tubing, and that's what butted means. They make it thicker where it goes into the lugs, so it's stronger, and then to save weight, it's thinner in the center, so yeah. And then carbon, you never want to clamp on carbon, obviously. So I think that should go without saying. This bike wouldn't matter as much. I mean, you wouldn't want to clamp on a vintage carbon bike either. But especially modern carbon bikes, the carbon is directional, and they lay the fibers to be strong in the direction they want them and flexible in the directions you don't need the stiffness for. That's why carbon bikes can shatter, because even though they're super strong in the way you're pedaling, they're super weak side to side. If that makes any sense. Come on. There we go. Rick asking for numbers of inanimate objects. Let me move this look out of the way a little bit. I think since we're doing this now, I really do want to finish this at this point since it's so close. And now that I have tried the laptop out again and it's still working, we'll try and, as Large Marge said, button this up on a live stream maybe next Thursday, because we're going to have, plan is to have Patrick on Tuesday. So yeah, it would be awesome to button this up and get it on the road. It does feel amazing. I mean, compared to my steel bikes, even though it's vintage carbon, it is pretty light. And those Caserum rims were never the lightest, but still lighter than, you know, any of the box section rims I have or anything like that. I mean, I hope this doesn't make an awful noise. If you're a headphone guy, you might want to be careful, because I'm going to drop this mic down for a second, so it's not blocking the view. But if you guys were here the night that I decided to make a shim, what was that for? Oh yeah, for the bars where they went into the clamp, and I wasn't paying attention. I was cutting that aluminum can directly in front of the microphone and shattering everyone's ears. So. Yeah, saying the stands are a game changer. Even this one was, like I said, it's called Bike Hand. I think it was listed on, I saw it somewhere. It might have even been Amazon. It's a really good deal. So I picked it up, but even the slightly nicer ones can be fairly cheap. I don't think they're expensive. This one's kind of nice too. It's got that little tool stand, which I like, but like the ones at the shop though, like when you get the real ones where stuff doesn't move at all, are amazing, but not feasible. I think I might need to get a razor to cut this tape, electrical tape. Which that also looks awful now. The tape is smeared so it's nice and wide, but Rick listens to Pink Floyd and Tim with headphones exclusively. It's funny, Pink Floyd is something you probably, I'm not a huge fan of. Pretty much only like Sid Barrett era Pink Floyd, but would be good enough. Early, like 60s stuff, you can't listen to a lot of it on headphones because the stereo mixes that they released the CDs on are so horrible. Beatles stuff is unlistenable on headphones until 1968. they put all the vocals. The guys who mixed stereo were like low-level engineers. Mono was way more popular. So the Beatles and George Martin were mixing in mono. Stereo mixes didn't sell that well. They passed that off to some low-level engineer who were experimenting with this new technology, and they put all the vocals on one side and all the music on one side, and just it's horrible. It's impossible to listen to on headphones. There we go. The Beatles released a box set of the mono recordings, but you have to buy the entire thing, which what did Lanky ask? Oh, you guys are hearing static again now? Oh, Broadford said when we had this problem that one night, but yeah, working on the bikes upside down. Wish You Were Here. That's the only song I like, not the record. The song Wish You Were Here I like because it's about Syd Barrett. And if you've ever known the story about that song, they were recording that song in Pink Floyd in the studio, and some guy they didn't recognize came in, was let in, and was sitting in the corner. And when they were doing the final take on Wish You Were Here, which is about Syd Barrett, it turns out the guy who was sitting in the corner who had become unrecognizable to them was Syd Barrett. So I think everyone thinks that's a love song, right? It's not. It's about their bandmate that they're missing. I don't know. I feel like this... Is that the goo stuck on there, or did it take the top of the leather off? So I have to see how that... And being that I'm someone who has a bandmate who apparently has gone a little off the deep end and was my best friend growing up, and I miss very, very much, I feel like that is a very relatable song for me personally. Oh yeah, this is much better. I wonder if I have any electric tape down the basement so I don't have to run off. But oh yeah, it's nice not to have that exposed. So can you... Yeah, so just from the years, a couple years and thousands of miles, the tape has just kind of slid down. Yeah, so rewrapping it seemed to... And the disc, there's not really even that much discoloration. Yonda did tell me to make sure he named a couple things, but I proof-eyed for my saddle to after I did this to make sure I retreated it from the stuff that hadn't been exposed. So sounds like, so the static sounds like a laptop's hard. Maybe the fans are just kicking on. Yeah. Maybe I'll turn it away from the laptop a little bit. Oh, Peter Jackson is making a Beatles documentary? God, I'm out of the loop when I don't know that. Sounds like that girl in the woods. You thought Wish You Were Here was about, do bass players matter? Have we talked about this, Gary? That's what I did for years. Recondition. Debbie Gibson. I don't know. What about probably the greatest bass player of all time, John Entwistle? I I went him I went and saw him play at the Highland Theater here in Akron a couple years before he died, and most he did the Who songs that he wrote, like Boris the Spider and a couple like that, which were cool. Most of the stuff from his solo like albums I didn't know, but and it wasn't my kind of music. But to watch this guy play bass in a way I've honestly never seen like the bass played. Like I can't even describe it. But so his hand on the neck, Zen whistle, is just moving up and down playing notes, but he's doing like different kind of rhythms of strumming with his hand down here. And my brain couldn't even, as someone who was a bass player in a band for over 10 years, couldn't even understand what he was doing and the noise that was coming from it. But even at their earliest stuff, the stuff that I like by The Who, My Generation, the song My Generation has bass solos in it. I mean, that's got to be the first rock and roll song with bass solos, right? I mean, and Whistle was famous for saying, he was like, I think a lot of times people mistake my bass sound for what Townsend was doing, because Townsend could be smashing his guitar, right? And Whistle was the one holding down the music. So. By the way, it's Deborah Gibson now. She did make a comeback, tried to make a comeback a number of years ago, and was insistent that it was now Deborah Gibson, not Debbie Gibson. But see, I actually in this the music argument is always a bad one to have, but I don't care about like being so over the top good at something, because that rarely actually sounds good. Like I was saying, like when I was watching Whistle at the Highland Theater, most of what he was playing I musically wasn't enjoying. I was just blown away by his skill. I think drums could be the same way. A lot of those 70s prog rock and 80s stuff where people are like, watch this drummer like do like something you've never seen before. It's like, that dude has a talent. He should be on talent shows. Like, it's not good rock and roll. Like, that's a lot of times the case. It doesn't mean you should be bad at your instrument to be good at rock and roll, but you don't want to overdo it. And I mean, as I got better and better at bass, there were still times where I wanted it to be like a one note strumming sound, because we were still in essence playing, fast rock and roll. Like, everything doesn't need to be this to show off. That's not always, you need to play what the song calls for. That's what being a good musician is, right? Let me grab electrical tape real quick. Yonda gets mad at me for this tape, by the way, because I guess there's a certain kind you're not supposed to use because it's sticky. I can't remember, but it's what I have here. So. Yeah, and so the technique over content goes with what we were talking about in the Discord about making videos. And what I was saying, a channel I've really been enjoying is Van Neistat. It's Casey Neistat's brother, if you know who he is, who was a very, very popular YouTuber. Still is, even though he's not making content anymore, or right now. But I think he's shooting this on some kind of 15-year-old digital camera. And the actual footage, if you really look at it, like I notice it as a videographer, looks pretty awful. His videos are amazing because that's not what they're about. He tells an amazing story. So yeah, the content is king, right? And that goes with, I think, anything. There's certain times when technology can matter, and Rick, the photographer I bought the studio off of, made a very good point. He was like, you'll know when you outgrow a piece of equipment. He was like, don't upgrade until then. It'll be like, when your vision is being limited by the equipment, that's when it's time to upgrade that piece of equipment, And I've learned that with lenses. Like, I can't get something sharp enough, close enough, far enough away, then I need that piece of gear, But a client's complaining about image quality, which has never actually happened, then it's time to upgrade your gear. You can't ride your bike on the terrain all your friends are riding. Maybe you need wider tires. Maybe you need a bike with more clearance, you can't get up the hill because you can't reach the down tubes to shift fast enough. You know, put some drifters on it. But Lanky's out. See you, Lanky. We were chatting in the Discord. I think Lanky, after we're both fully vaccinated, is going to come over to the studio one night and be on a live stream. So that'll be fun. Dylan says he hasn't known a single name in this discussion except for Little Debbie. JB5 to say Claypool. Yeah, I don't. Never. I have almost no knowledge of the music because it's just not my cup of tea. Why am I not? Oh, there's where he said goodbye. So who else did I miss? I don't know who Victor Wooten is, JMZ, to be 100% honest. Gary, I don't hate Primus, but I'm not a fan. I don't own their albums, but I've heard some stuff that doesn't bother me. What is another name I missed earlier in the conversation? Victor Wooten. Wooten is super skilled but boring, dude. Pudgy, yeah, I don't know him. I don't know who Carter Buford is. The reason I'm struggling over here is I'm trying to get the tape without cutting it so I don't have to sit there and pull a million pieces off. I could just unwrap once. But you know, when it comes to some all-time, I'd say one of the all-time, and this is going to sound crazy to name someone in the Beatles, but one of the most underrated drummers ever is Ringo. Like, Ringo is an awesome drummer. You especially listen to really early Beatles. He's amazing. And then even like once the Beatles did start playing all different kinds of music, like that is a dude. Almost the fact that you don't think about his drumming is what is so good about him. You know, he's kind of the opposite of Keith Moon, who Keith Moon early on is amazing because he's reinventing the way drums could be played in a rock band. I mean, Keith Moon considered himself playing lead drums, and you watch even the footage from like 1965 when they're playing like, you know, stuff. He's still going insane and playing drums. Like still, no one plays drums, but especially on that kind of music. Yeah, one take Ringo. Yeah, he would get his stuff done and then be able to just hang out. He thought the studio was really boring. You know, he nailed his tracks. I mean, the Beatles got him because they said he was the best. You know, I mean, like, what was his band called? The band he was in, Rory Storm and the Hurricanes or something. Like, the Beatles would see that band around. I mean, when they needed a drummer, the Beatles they weren't world famous, but they were popular. They went for the best drummer they could get. Titswater. Rick says Ringo wrote Hard Hats on Hard Day's Night like a fiend. Hard Day's Night is the British version, the real version of Hard Day's Night, not the American soundtrack version, is probably my favorite Beatles record. And Ringo does kill it on that record. Some of those songs are just, God, they rock so hard. You kind of have to put yourself back in place and not listen to it like the Beatles are sounding a little like the Chipmunks. But oh, Buddy Rich, yeah, for sure. JB5, are you saying that Ringo wanted to play with Dylan? I mean, Dylan's band, which became the band, it's obviously no slouches over there. Or were they originally, when they played for Dylan, when Dylan picked them up, they were called the Ravens, I believe. Yeah. As you guys will find, like, vintage bikes are one of the least parts of my my knowledge of stuff that doesn't matter. These I don't like these last few reps. Get this back in here. It's Gary saying Buddy Rich, greatest drummer ever. It's so hard to have those kind of conversations because like what I was talking about earlier, like what's the criteria? You know what I mean for you know what makes someone the greatest ever? Is it to me it's not being technically the best, to me it's sounding the best, right? So or what's your role in the band you were in? It's fun to talk about this and do what I'm doing right now because this is something I've needed to do, but I just haven't wanted to do it. One thing that Otis taught me, and I don't know if you guys who wrap tape at home, is you're not supposed to stretch the electrical tape. You're supposed to just put it on smoothly. If that makes sense, you're not supposed to be yanking on it. Bar tape, you have the flexibility to do what you want. If you want it to be thinner or whatever it may be. Yeah, but the electrical tape's not supposed to be put under tension as you wrap it, according to a guy owns a bike shop and has worked in bike shops almost his entire life. So, yeah, much better. The Def Leppard drummer thing is funny that Obsolescence just pointed out because I remember there being this negative thing. Like everyone's like, back in the day, I'm old enough, I'm 42. So, I mean, I was a kid, but I remember hearing the older kids talk about it. Like, yeah, it's amazing he's one handed. But then there was always someone who was like, well, he's just doing the rest with pedals. And I'm like, isn't that even more amazing? Like, no drummer plays all the other freaking drums with pedals. Like, this guy has trained himself to not only keep, the bass drum, the kick drum going with this foot, but now with his other foot, he's holding down a beat that is matching what his missing arm should have been doing. Like, I'm not, I grew up liking Def Leppard when I was a kid. It's not something I ever care to hear pour some sugar on me again. But just on the basis of people putting it like that down, oh, well, he just used a bunch of pedals. That's more amazing. Like, I don't. I'm trying to think of a bike analogy. Like if we lost an appendage and we're then able to replicate what you need to do on the bike, that doesn't really work because it really is a four thing. There's that one famous rider. There's other people who ride without a certain leg, but not a good analogy. But yeah, so to say that's somehow a negative on how good he was, to me that's an extra bonus positive. Like he taught his leg to do what his arm was doing. That's pretty incredible, whether I like the music or not. I'm gonna grab my Proofide real quick. Rick was saying wrapping bars is satisfying. I get nervous every time because I want it to look good, and you know, you don't wrap bars that much, especially when I'm doing cloth and I'm gonna then shellac them, like on the I was doing on the Barry Hoban on the stream one night. Like that was padded cloth tape, which I ended up really liking that padded cloth tape. But I always get a little nervous each time because I don't know, just always wanted to come out well. Spinal Tap's drummer was awesome until he blew up. So Pudgy says if you do, yeah, you would know well too. If you do stretch the electrical tape in the least, don't stretch the last few rounds. Okay. Gary said he wraps the electrical tape until it resembles golf balls. I actually wrapped more tape on this side because the way the angle, and it is taped underneath. It's not like I didn't, but where the cable has to come out and go, like we were talking about, to this side of the caliper, it's making a harsh angle, and so I put a little extra on there to kind of keep it from peeling up the bar tape, and I had done that kind of the first time too. Pudgy, I don't think you were here yet, but maybe you know the answer to this question. I was going through the calipers when I first got on. Why are all vintage front calipers side pull brakes? The side pull on vintage calipers is on this side. The side pull on modern calipers is on this side. Is it because under the bar tape routing it just gives it a smoother line, maybe? Whereas a vintage bike you just would have had it coming up and going down. So you didn't have to cross it over, depending though, because in places where they drive on the other side of the road, they do the motorcycle, they switch them over. So before I could get a word out of my mouth, I'm already arguing with myself. Stuart Copeland, Patrick, yeah, he from the Police. He's a drummer who really can tear it up in the right ways too, without boring you. Later, I mean, some of the Police too. He had like an overboard drum set. You know, that's one thing when I was talking about like 1965, 66 Keith Moon. He's still doing it on that tiny little 5-piece drum set, which is what makes it look so amazing to watch someone go that nuts on something like that. Or some of that Stuart Copeland, not to take anything away from Stuart Copeland, but because you still, the more drums, just the more you have to know what you're doing. It goes back to the same thing with my Def Leppard argument, but just for the looks of what it was. But yeah, he had all the little, he had like pretty intense drum set there in the end. Gary said he just realized he knows way too much. Oh, Dylan's out. Sorry, Dylan, if I missed you before you left. You joined us way later than usual. I guess I didn't get as creepy. Or we didn't get as creepy. Oh, Rick was saying he rapped today in a hurry, probably better than when you fuss with it. Probably was, because you're just getting more natural and just doing it, right? Gary asked if it's possible to braid different tapes if you guys didn't already answer them. Yeah, that's a very common thing. Not common, but for like if you watch Blue Lug videos, they'll do that a lot. Cloth bar tape, A lot of people will do that where they start to interlace different ones or even change colors halfway down. Some people do it. That looks really, really cool. I've seen a couple on Rivendell's where people have done that. I think on Rivendell's Instagram, I meant to say. Yeah, Phil Collins is obviously an amazing drummer, and the thing that makes him more amazing, and again, um, I'm not a Genesis fan, but the fact that anyone who could drum like that and sing at the same time, that's not easy to do, especially lead vocals. Yeah, that looks good. So talking pudgy about like doing the different breaks, um, my Schwinn came reversed, Neo Retro Schwinn with the 9-speed Durace. But I don't know if you guys, I think I was with Large Marge watching this, but a couple years ago, TJ Van Garderen for EF was winning the Tour of California. His bike had a mechanical. He jumped on the Domestique's bike. I can't remember whose it was, and he went in to take a hot turn, and it was a European rider, I think a British rider, so he was still had the moto style where they were well reversed by what we consider normal, and he completely went off the course because he expected the brake stack totally different. Patrick says Russell Simmons from John Spencer's Blues was exploding a little three-piece set when you saw him in the 90s. Yeah, see, that would be cool to see. It's another band I know a little bit of their music, not a ton. And so I don't have anything against them or for them. I just only know a little bit of them. But yeah, it just looks cool when someone rocks, something, someone gets up there with some stupid looking 12-string bass. Like you expect them to be good at it, right? Or I guess it's kind of what I was saying with the police drummer. Not anything to take him it's not taking anything away from how good he is. But when someone gets up there with a drum set that has every size drum, it's like, well, you better know how to play all these drums. When someone gets up there with a three-piece, you're like, what can they do with that? Then you see them totally rock it. It makes it more impressive. In the end, the sound is only what matters, but just, just like my opinion, man. Danny Partridge? Oh, from the Partridge family? I know nothing about them. Oh, was that Lachlan Morton's bike? Yeah, I bet it would be because he's Australian. So, yeah, if it was Lachlan's bike, I bet he might have had him reversed because that would make total sense. Him or uh, Mitch Docker, maybe. But I'm not sure if Mitch Docker was in that race. That might have been Lachlan. I think you're right, Pudgy. That was TJ Van Gardner jumped on Lachlan Morton's bike and yeah. But then, do you remember how weird that was? The commissaires, like, even though TJ lost the lead, put him back in. It made no sense. Anyways, talking about Tour of California doesn't even exist anymore, but I use the same rag for the proof at any time. If you're wondering why I've only grabbed a little bit, it's just got enough built up that I could usually just, I think I might do my seat while I'm at it because I haven't done it yet this year. Gary, it's funny, like when you said you might bar tape your whole frame. I've seen people do the chain stays. I think they do that as kind of a guard. But then in New York, don't people bar tape a lot of the stuff where it's going to lean on? I've seen people do it on the top tube where it's always going to be lean to be locked up. And I guess some people do it to hide the identity of what the bike is, so it's less attractive to thieves. But it wouldn't be completely unheard of. Oh, so Pudgy was saying you're guessing vintage brakes were based around moto style routing. That makes sense. That makes more sense. And I'm wondering what year they switched, because I was like even saying These Shimano are, what do you call it when they're not dual pivot, center pivot, single pivot? Yeah. These are old 105s. I would be surprised if these weren't original version of 105s, but BR 1050. So, but yeah, even these are pulled from the modern side. So I'm trying to. Well, I sold my bike that had the full 600 group set, so I can't look at to see what that would have been. I'm always kind of bummed. I just that's why I shouldn't buy stuff I don't need, because I just like to hang on to it. I could be a little bit of a hoarder in that way. It's probably fairly obvious, but I had an Austro Daimler that was beautiful. I actually walked into the bike shop, and the guy didn't. I think Otis bought it for like $90, and I bought it off Otis for $100. Redid the cables, redid the bar tape, but it was a complete Shimano 600 group set. So I couldn't bring myself to take it apart. But again, like I was saying earlier, I just didn't need another down tube shifting bike. And so it was like no reason to really do anything to it besides like fix it up. So a woman hit me up about getting a vintage bike for her boyfriend for Christmas, and I ended up selling it to her for basically a little more than what I had into it. And explained that, basically explained that I was charging for some labor, but it was beautiful. Paint job was beautiful. Bike was nothing too fancy, but it was nice. But again, it was a pretty bike that was just sitting against the wall, so what's the point? This Brooks is it's worn in, and every time I reproof it, it's just I just love it. It's so comfortable. And again, like I said, I must have close to 4,000 miles on it. Otis sold it to me. He got it used from someone. He said it was sitting in a garage and it was almost unused, fairly dry. He rode it once and hated it. He said it beat him up. He jokes now that he's still sore from the one time he rode it. I liked it the first time I put it on this bike, but now that it's totally broken in, it's so perfect. That's why you buy Brooks, right? You break them into you. I said, Pudgy said, wrapping the top tube isn't uncommon for protecting the paint. I must have missed a comment there because I see the hell yeah, but Gary said he has a Fuji to mess around with whenever he gets some money. Yeah. Well, these old 105s, Otis showed me a pair of brakes when I was in there, and Jan was talking about these, motivated me because he was like, yeah, those are not good brakes, especially for when you're riding with a load. Otis brought some brakes out in there black, and I was like, hey, I just can't bring myself to put those on this bike. And he brought these out, and I'm like, I don't know if those would be long enough, and they're also, I don't know how much of an upgrade they are, but I don't know what they came from. He's like, just make them disappear, and he shoved them in my bike bag. I'm like, well, I'll end up getting use out of them somewhere on some project, so. Rick says 20 years from now, Tim will be talking about the virtues of vintage hydraulic brakes. Yeah, who knows? I don't have any, so my Raleigh is our cable pull, but cool. Well, didn't upgrade the brakes, at least fix the bar tape. Proofided the saddle, which needed to be done, especially underneath. That's why I keep kind of working it in there. That's Last year with the pandemic and us riding off the road a lot, I put more miles on the Raleigh than I did on this. In previous years, it was kind of this bike. The previous 2 years, this bike would be the bike I'd put the most miles on in like the nice weather. And then with the tours, it would make it really, yeah, it's got even like these, I don't even know what you call them, but it almost looks like grain that just really comes back out on the sides when I redo it. But yeah. Did that static ever go away, or did it stick? Has it been sticking around and being annoying this whole time? Do you know what the model of your Fuji is, Gary? Fuji made a spectrum of bikes like a lot of the big brands too. I mean, not to say that yours isn't going to be a nice one, just that. My friend Brad, Brad was on the Brad, not Funny Brad, Flavortown Brad, who was up here from Columbus. He had a Fuji that was decent, but it was still lower end. I would say would be similar to a lower end Peugeot. It wasn't garbage, you know. Pudgy needs to proof his cambios. Fuji Sportif. Well, if this computer didn't suck, I would look it up. But so it's kind of staticky if you're hearing it really up close, but it fades in if you're hearing it on speakers. I think it might be some. I'll switch out. There's nothing I can do about it now, obviously, but I will switch out this USB to micro USB cable for my audio interface before Tuesday, so hopefully that solves the problem. I can't think of anything else that would cause static here because I haven't got any static on my audio recorder from doing YouTube videos, so. Brooke said now he has to break out the proof guide. It's really fun to read about that because like Brooks saddles like are such a man. You go down the rabbit hole on message boards and stuff and people's opinions on all this and like how often you should proof item, like whether they can actually get wet or not. This one got soaked on an overnighter we did, but it was on the way home. I let it dry completely, reproof-eyed it. That's what I've heard is best practice, and now I'll always believe that because this one's still in really good shape. I almost always carry a saddle cover, even if there's barely any chance of rain. But that time we were just like, basically it was a downpour so hard and fast that it would not have, that you wouldn't even had time to get it out of my bag. But yeah, it's like an interesting rabbit hole, and all the people who talk about like the cheats for breaking them in and all that stuff. People who soak them in stuff, put them in ovens. Yonda was telling you about Domestique. She used to actually unrivet them, soak them in wine, ride them, re-rivet them to like the leader's bike. Or Yonda will have to, next time he's on, tell this story about this old thing that he was talking about. I'm one of those people, obviously, as you guys could probably guess, that breaking them in myself is what I want to do. But of my 3 B17s, none of them were brand new, either when I got them. So one I got from my friend Woody, who does the Roach Clips business. That's on the Roger Riviere, which I'm going to move to the Raleigh so I can attach the Zeitgeist to. Plus, I just want a Brooks on the Raleigh. The other one's on the single speed, which I bought from Kenny from Missing Falls. Well, I didn't buy it from him. I traded him my GoPro Hero 5. And this is the one Otis gave me, which is the closest to a new one that I've had. It's one that sat around that I don't think was ever really ridden, basically, is the gist I get. Funny Brad had a Fuji too, that's right. But Funny Brad's Fuji was modern, whereas, and I don't know, is Large Marge, you might know since you know more about Japanese bikes than me. Well, you know something about Japanese bikes, I don't know much. Is Fuji still Fuji? You know, like in the same way Raleigh and Schwinn and those bikes aren't. I don't know if modern Fuji is the same Fuji or some conglomerate that they got, or some investment firm they got bought out by. But Brad's Fuji must have been about it. Flavortown Brad's would have been like a 80, I want to say 81, 79 to 81, somewhere in that era from the way it looked. But hey, Rick, so there is no, so that's why I was saying I'll change the USB cable. There is no audio cable. I'm using an audio interface. So I'm using a field recorder to record the vocals, or not record, but when I live stream. So it's micro USB to USB directly into the computer. So I think maybe it's, who knows where this cable came from. I just knew it was a data cable and it's worked for a while, but maybe it's getting a little frayed at the ends where it's always bent, you know? So yeah, there's no true audio cable here. So there should be a true digital signal, which is what makes it a much easier way to do it. Even if I put a mic, it would have to go into an interface to record live to a computer, whole thing. I learned all about by doing this live streaming thing. So static since I moved the mic. Why don't I move the mic again? Like I said, it shouldn't be an interference thing, but it just could be a... There is a fan. The fan is running on the computer. OBS runs pretty hard on this laptop, so it'd be interesting, you know, because I could hear the fan, so it might just be the computer's fan. And when we're upstairs, my desktop is way over here on the desk, and the audio interface is really, you know, it's really far away from the computer, so you're never picking up those fans. But oh, Gary said he didn't like the Brook saddle either? Huh. These aren't true fluorescents, Rick, so it wouldn't be that either. These are LEDs. So, and the old beer sign is not making any noise, even though those do hum. You'd have to be real close to it to hear the humming. So it's got to be the computer fan. Either way, I'll still change out the cord before the next stream, just to try and get rid of one of the variables. But no, because you guys heard static the one time when I was upstairs too. So it's probably this cable is just getting a little old. So they switched over to growing apples. Fuji since 1899. Well, anyone could say that, right? I mean, Raleigh uses their whole historic legacy on the modern bikes, and it's, like I said, it's not true. I mean, and Raleigh does do a cool thing though, like even with my Tamland too, where when they had a guy help design, and like I said, the title of the video about that bike is first gravel bike, you know, first dedicated gravel bike up there with the Salsa Warbird. But Raleigh, one of their criteria was that it still had the Raleigh vibe. So Raleigh does still kind of have that, even though it's not Raleigh, that they still are trying to maintain an aesthetic that harkens back to the true Raleighs, which obviously works really well for me. But what's up, traveling through? He said he thinks it's the Fugees. How you doing? I'd love to know where you're at right now. So I think you've already passed through Ohio, but the last video you posted, you were just getting onto the. Now it's been a couple days since I watched it. Wow, that was the rainy one where you were, you woke up from your tent in the rain. But so Patrick, you said you had an early '90s Fuji that just said 4130. So they're just talking about, and I don't know if you're making this mistake. I'm not assuming you are, but they're talking about the steel it's made out of. That's just your standard chrome alley is 4130. Usually not that heavy, especially if it's butted, but of course that just depends on the kind of steel. Doesn't necessarily dictate what kind of tubes or the size of the tubes they used. But yeah. Surly's and a lot of the All Cities are actually still made out of, you know, butted 4130 tubing. But yeah, even like when Peugeot, since they almost never put the model name on them, people will look at the stickers for the kind of metal that was used, and they will think that's the model name. Mine, I've seen listed, and ones like it online all the time, as a Carbolite 103. Carbolite 103 is the steel, not the bike model, but nerdy. Yeah. Oh, I've fiddled with the cable, Rick. Grand subject, you had a Fuji long ago, and it was nice. Remind me, Grand subject, where are you at? I can't remember what, I'm drawing a total blank as to what town you're in. Rick said, hiding the old cable. Yeah, it could go over here with these bike chains that are super vintage ones that I'm reminding myself not to use. But I mean, I don't see why my phone would interfere. Don't phones have to be non-interference by their nature? By FCC regulation, right? No, but like I said, it happened the one time upstairs, so I think we have a cable issue. Huh, Fuji 4130. Interesting. Wow, you're already to St. Louis, traveling through. So, again, I was already talking about it, but early on in the stream we were talking about him. But it's traveling all the way across the country. So, obviously, the videos he posts are going to be behind on where he is. But, yeah. Oh, it stopped when I touched the cable. Nice, that's good to know. So, be in St. Louis in the morning, then on the, is that Caddy Trail for the next week? Things are good. Midwest is great. And he loves the Fujis. Nice. Maybe I just have this set a little hot. Let me try that. Maybe it's when I'm closer to the mic I'm getting problems because I'm overloading it from here, but not from the software. Oh, that's pretty cool, man. I traveling through. I look forward to seeing your next videos about, you know, one, got some good footage going through Ohio and stuff like that. That'll be cool. But then as you move onward west to the places I've never been before, it'll be really cool too. Let me, I think it's already a little late here. I think I'm going to do a piddle break and then we'll come back and wrap up. But yeah, definitely keep chatting and traveling through. If you're still hanging in there wherever you are in your tent, let us know and everything. And definitely, I'll still see the comments when I jump back in here in 1 second. But So traveling through said he's 1,600 miles, 27 days, 0 flat tires. Nice. That's amazing. There was pedal static? Wow, 1,600 miles. That is such a cool tour. I was working before you got here on the Trek, and that's what I was referencing you for, because I was trying to fix up a couple things and about how you have like the kind of the modern, upgraded version of this, but still with that kind of cool same paint job and vintage aesthetic that this one has. Oh, Grand Subjects in Richmond, India. Say it, don't spray it, Tim. All right. Yeah, you probably told us that, but I have a hard time keeping everything straight, as I can't. As everyone knows, but oh, you're kidding. No pedal static. That's good. That is really cool traveling through that. Yeah. I did, what else was What do you mean, Broadford dangerous to chat that out loud, as in the way that he's going to jinx himself? Yeah, Schwabel Marathon, the tires he's running. Yeah, he might be. Yeah. I'm trying to remember because he did do the right when he was leaving for his tour. He did the full breakdown. Also, I appreciate it. Traveling through shouted me out in I think it was the last video we posted, and a couple people did watch a couple of my most recent videos and commented that they came over to this channel, from traveling through shout out. So I appreciate that. Hopefully the favor's been returned for a couple of people from us who have found you over there. And then I've noticed that we have a couple reading the comments on your video. There's a couple other YouTubers that we both have in common too. Traveling through down in not traveling through that's you. Follow Thomas down in Florida who does bike tours, a lot of highway bike tours, which are kind of interesting to see and stuff like that. So yeah, I love the idea. I just love the community all over the place, and that's even Grand Subject why I was asking where you are. I just love to know where everyone is. Because this time last week we had the guy jump in from Switzerland. Got a guy in South America, and I'm trying to remember what country he was in. But also we had a dude somewhere in the Far East who jumped in the chat one night. But yeah, just that whole, it's such a cool thing when it gets like that. So. So traveling through says doing 60, 80 miles, did 105 in Ohio. The Midwest is awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and like we were saying before, the part of the state you went through, a lot of the riding is really nice. Like there through Springfield and all of that. So. He's got a pump. He's not scared. Yeah. Cottard cranks, man. I'm glad none of the I have a wall hanger that has cottard cranks. I'm glad none of the bikes I actually ride are cottard cranks. Those, what a pain in the ass, right? Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think if I flatted both years on Ohio to Erie. I definitely flatted. What's that park we were in? Not far from Columbus. I flatted real pain with your loaded bike, because I flatted on the rear to get. I think I flatted twice on that tour, but then again, this bike is running 32s, so pinch flats aren't, especially with a heavy load on the back, are not going to be that uncommon. Aaron flatted a number of times, and then when we went to New York on the Erie Canal towpath, she flatted like 5 times, and then we walked into REI and bought a new tire. So traveling through said he rode 140 miles of paved trail in Ohio. Indiana didn't give it up easy. Yeah, Central Ohio is very flat, so not a lot. Yeah. But there are a couple, interestingly, if Large Marge is still here, you might remember, I think it's the day we leave Columbus. Once you get out of the city limits, there's a bike path for a while, or that's the day into Columbus. I'm trying to remember. There's somewhere not far from Columbus where we hit actually a couple really tough hills for a while before we get on a long trail. Maybe that's farther from Columbus than I'm thinking. It's so hard. We've done Ohio to Erie twice, but it's so hard to remember. That's so much, almost 400 miles. It's just hard to keep where everything is exactly straight. But because there was one kind of crazy country road descent, I did think it was far from Columbus, but that one of the motivations to want to change these brakes, because I remember just being like, Aaron and Ben were just like whipping down it, and I was like, no, I've got to be modulating the whole way. I can't pick up too much speed or I'll never stop this thing. So we don't have cultures or nails in the Midwest. So by the way, anyone who has posted some bike pics that I'm not getting to tonight, and some of the repair stuff we were talking about, we'll post that, and I think we'll do a bunch of that. Probably a week from tonight, we'll just make the whole episode about everything we've been talking about. I think I'll even take notes to get through all that, because like I said, Tuesday will be Patrick, and I'm going to work really hard to make sure that's all ironed out. But yeah, so it's just too hard with the laptop to try and get into it. It's just too frustrating for me. I love doing the Discord thing and the interactive thing, and so I think we'll just have like a whole week from tonight's session where we go back, and get through all that. And if everyone has a good weekend and it's posted a lot of stuff, talk about that and just keep it like.
Eric Pipin subscribed to the channel.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Whether you're in here or not, I think that might pop up regardless. But that's the first time someone has subscribed to the channel while we've been live. Our words done that, so get to see what happens. So that had the woman's voice. Yeah. The pads on the front are those orange Yokozunas. And Yonda, when he saw me, is like, at least you're running modern pads on your fronts. So they are better. They are the better, nicer, more modern materials. So they do help. On the rear, I just have the cheap blocks. They're still new ones, but I should probably put the nice ones on both. And actually, there's a lot of life left in some of these brakes that I'm not going to be able to use. So for this bike anyway. But traveling through it said he's looking forward to doing Cleveland to Cincinnati sometime. Yeah, you would. Cleveland, and especially Cleveland to Columbus, I would say is like, you'd be surprised with Ohio's reputation how beautiful it would be, especially in the summer, especially when things are green. So even you came through, since it would have been a few days ago already, traveling through, like, that will actually look way nicer even right now. Like, it's just really changing right now. So like I've talked about this on here before, but like when I have friends come visit me in early spring or late fall when the leaves are gone, I'm like, this isn't the same place, you know, but like, you know, Amish country and you know, Columbus, Northeast Ohio, the Cuyahoga Valley, oh, is way more beautiful in summer, um, late spring, summer, early fall. It's way more beautiful than people give it credit for, and up, you know, all the way here through till you start to get in Central Ohio is actually fairly hilly and varied terrain. But a human woman's voice. Yeah. Tim says that the first time someone has subbed to the channel on a live stream, every time someone subs to the channel on a live stream. Do I? Has that happened before? Like, we've had members that have popped up, but I actually can't remember a time where the subscriber thing popped up. I had the industrial gravel logo on there, which I don't, yeah. It was Alexa or Siri. Maybe I do. Maybe it always happens late at night after I've had a little too many of the missing falls. So cool stops, yeah, I have. I do have cool stops, yeah, on some of the bikes. These are, I think, equivalent to the cool stops. I do on my mountain bike. It's that brand. Brake pads, like good rim brake pads are interesting. They're a lot like, well, I worked at AutoZone for like 4 months, 3 months, maybe worst job I've ever had. But like better headlights. So better headlights are brighter and clearer and more directional, but they don't last as long. And the same thing happens with good brake pads. Good brake pads for rim brakes wear out faster, but are better for stopping power. So that's why I put the nicer ones on the front and just the older, cheaper ones on the back. But yeah, the older ones last forever, and that's why I haven't changed them, but I should just change them anyways. What brand are these ones? Oh, these are Shimano pads. Oh, these are all integrated. You can't even change the outside, whereas that's one thing I like about some of the cool stops and like these kind, whereas you could just change the pad so you're not throwing away everything. Like the metal stays there, but I got some cool stops on this one. I should take these off because it's not like I ever break with the front on my trainer. So oh, grand subject, you don't ever, on the trails around you, you don't ever see any bike packers come through? So when I'm out riding, especially in the summer, just on the towpath, since it is part of the Ohio to Erie trail, I'll be out and I'll see people. And there's been a couple times where I've been riding solo and going in the same direction where I've slowed down because someone's clearly got like a bunch of gear on the bike and like started up a conversation. I'm like not someone who always talks to everybody. I'm like very like moody with how social I am. It just, and nothing I have control over, but photography and events have helped, just having to be out and talking to people. But it's one of those things, some days I'm just in the mood and I see someone like with a heavy, you know, definitely bike packing and touring or whatever, and I'll like ride up and kind of, especially if I'm alone, ask them what they're up to and how far they're going and all that kind of stuff. It's always fun to talk to them, especially since they're riding somewhere that I ride all the time. Me and Aaron did that up near Cleveland. There was a woman who was like riding a bike and had a really nice looking bike packing setup, and Aaron started talking to her. She was going from New York to Chicago, and she was so thrilled the day she was riding when we were talking to her because she said she had had rain the entire trip so far. So she's like, hey, I got to Northeast Ohio and it's beautiful. And I'm like, it's like, cool, that's going to be our memory of Northeast Ohio. So All right, I do need to crash. I was actually going to crash earlier, but with traveling through popping in, I did want to give him the chance to answer some of our questions and all that. But definitely looking forward to more of your uploads and seeing how your adventure goes. Now, I'm amazed that you're already that far, and it's really cool. Good luck out there. Stay safe, brother. And yeah, we'll be looking out for that. If you're not subscribed, I think you could just click on his name and get over to his channel, because like I said, it's a pain for me on this laptop to try and drop the link. It'll take longer than I'm trying to sign off. But traveling through his Bigfoot's little brother. All right, guys. So yeah, my goal is to get an upload up this weekend, but if not, I will see you on Tuesday. And yeah, with Patrick. So, all right, guys. Peace.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Cause
Yeah.
this not okay.
Fitzwater photo.
J'ai patienté, j'ai fait passer les mois d'attente comme je l'ai pu. Petit à petit, je me suis remis sur les bons rails, les bons rails. Je me sens de nouveau confiance, je vois tout se remettre en place. Finalement,
Tim Fitzwater super chatted $1.99.